Hi there. Today we're going to be talking about what I mean by a strong body of work, a series, or a style. So, style comes from how you use the language of painting, a combination of what you paint and how you paint. How to develop one is one of the questions that I get most often from students. And it has one of those almost bizarrely simple answers to a complex question. The way you get a style is through time with the brush in hand. There is no way around simply putting the time in. If you put the time in, that style is going to develop all on its own. So think back to when you learned how to write in cursive, whichever grade it was. So you worked really diligently to copy the form and the style that you were presented with, and very, very self-consciously kept at it. You got a grade on it. Over time, you let go of some of the parts of that didn't work for you, and you held on to the parts that did, and without even thinking about it, you developed your own handwriting. Well, we're going to be doing that same thing. So I don't want you to overthink this and to try to intellectualize a style. Style happens when you put the time in with the brush in hand. But what creates a strong series? What creates strong paintings? Now, that's something you can approach really intentionally. So if you haven't already, dive into the composition, color, and light resource course that is a part of a painter's path, because that course covers exactly that material. The things that create a strong painting, a strong body of paintings, are the same no matter what type of style, what type of subject matter or medium you want to approach. The things that create strong paintings that attract viewers to them, no matter, are number one, a strong composition with a really strong value pattern. That value pattern is what we call a notan. Notan is just the relationship of the lights to the darks, and it applies no matter what you're painting. The notan is what our eye is attracted to as human beings. It has to do with visual perception. So our eyes, because we are hunter-gatherers, are attracted to strong patterns of light and dark. And if you include those in your painting, the viewer is going to be attracted to them without really totally understanding why. So make sure that you've got a strong pattern of light and dark in your paintings. Then you want to think about having a proportion of light and dark that is visually interesting. We don't like even distributions of things. Our eyes prefer to have difference, contrast. So when you're creating that strong pattern of light and dark, try to ensure that it's not just 50-50, not 50 light, 50 dark. Make it either predominantly light or predominantly dark. And the degree to which you do that is going to help create a mood or a feeling. So something that is 90% dark with a tiny little bit of light is going to feel radically different than something that is 60% dark and 40% light. Be aware of proportion. The second thing that will really make your painting stand out, that's covered in Module 4 of Composition, Color, and Light, is an awareness of the role that color plays in creating strong compositions. Color and those four aspects, value, which is already mentioned, hue, intensity, and temperature, all help to create that strong proportion and contrast. So become very aware of how you use color. Do it intentionally. Think about incorporating light into your paintings. Again, whether they're abstracts or representational. Light has to do with illumination. When you incorporate composition, color, and light into your paintings in a very intentional way, using the framework that's in CCL and that you can find below here, your paintings are going to begin to sing. So that's the first step in creating strong paintings. Use those three things very intentionally and get the time in with the brush in hand. So you need to understand that language of painting. The first aspect to that is what we just talked about, the composition overall. Value, color, hue, edge, all of those aspects. Second thing to think about in creating a series is the subject matter. What are you going to paint? Don't overthink that. We've got some worksheets later to help you figure that one out if you're not sure right now. But the subject matter contributes to what you're saying as much as the composition. The third thing that helps to create that language of painting and create the thing you're communicating to the viewer is how you deal with technique and materials, how you paint. So it's what you paint, why you paint, and how you paint. All of those three things communicate a style, create a strong body of work, and a series. One of my favorite quotes comes from a Renaissance painter. So this idea is not new. It's been around a long time. And Cennini said, "You'll find if nature's granted you any imagination at all," and air quotes here, or parentheses, we all have a creative imagination. So this includes us all. Cennini said that you'll eventually acquire a style individual to yourself. And it cannot help being good because your hand and your mind, being always accustomed to gathering flowers, would ill know how to pluck thorns. So what Cennini is saying there is that we can't help but develop a style. And when we put the time in, it can't help but expressing what is uniquely us. So I want us to be like Cennini. One of my professors said that you can always find the answer to whatever problem you're dealing with in art by looking back at the past. And I think there are two or three other quotes that I really want you to think about, maybe even write down in your journal so that you hold on to them, because there's a lot of wisdom in what other artists have to say. So Georges Braque said, "One has to guard against a formula that's good for everything, that can interpret reality in addition to the other arts, and that rather than creating can only result in a style or stylization." So what Braque is saying there is be careful, develop that style, but don't become bound to it by a formula. So that's the only warning I want you to think about there, is I don't want you to get too caught up in being formulaic. Don't worry about that at the beginning, but be thinking about that as you progress in developing your own style. Sonia Donnelly said, "After years of painting, drawing, sculpting, or whatever, your style becomes you. You are your style, inseparable, one and the same, no matter what you choose to create." That's kind of a magical idea, isn't it? That we are our style. And that's why it is impossible for you to not develop one. You will develop your own style. So don't overthink this one. It will happen of its own accord, and it will develop over time. So let's move on to why you want to have one. One of the main reasons that you want to develop a style is that by working consistently over time, you're going to learn more faster by going deeper rather than broader in your explorations. So that means that you have to focus on one thing for a while. Doesn't mean that you're throwing those other things away, but it means you're going to focus on one thing and you're going to go deep rather than broad. So that means you're going to narrow down your focus and be very intentional about what you're working on. So if you've been working on lots of different subjects, lots of different mediums, yes, I want you to focus down and make notes of all your other ideas in your journal. Realize you're not throwing them away. They're just going in the parking lot of ideas for the moment. Just like some of those other things that were habits and routines that you have that didn't really fit into achieving your 90-day or 12-month goal went into a parking lot. So we're parking them over to the side. You can come back to them later, but you need to go deep and you need to focus on one thing. Another reason to have a style is it makes your work recognizable. And that's going to be super important if you want to develop that engaged audience. People need to know who you are when they look at you. If you want to get into a gallery, you need to have a recognizable style. That is what is going to make the gallery owner feel confident that if they take you on and spend the money and time to promote you, that you're not going to walk in the door with a totally different style that your collectors won't recognize. So you need to have that style developed before you go look for a gallery. It also makes your work more collectible. And again, it reassures both galleries and collectors that your work is worth their time and investment. Collectors want to be able to say, I have a Susie Smith over here, and people know what a Susie Smith looks like. So, the 3 reasons you really want to have a style, and one that will develop naturally over time, is that you will learn more faster. So that's an internal reason. The other 2 are external. It'll make your work recognizable, and it will reassure your collectors and gallerists that it's worth their time and investment to develop your and support your work. So let's dive in a little deeper.